What does brain damage mean for our senses? The brain is like the control center of our body. It processes everything we see, feel, and experience. But what happens when part of this control center is damaged? Brain damage can change the way we perceive the world, affecting our senses, emotions, and how we interact with our surroundings. 1. Brain damage and vision, what we see. The brain's occipital lobe processes visual information. If it's damaged, it can lead to blurred or partial vision, inability to recognize faces or objects, visual agnosia, complete blindness even if the eyes are healthy. Example story. Tom was in a car accident that injured the back of his head, where the occipital lobe is located. After recovering, he could see objects but couldn't make sense of them. A simple apple or a clock looked like random shapes to him. His brain damage made it difficult for him to connect what his eyes saw to what the objects actually were. 2. Brain damage and touch, what we feel. The parietal lobe controls the sense of touch, pressure, and pain. Damage here can result in numbness or loss of sensation, difficulty identifying textures or temperatures, phantom sensations, feeling something that isn't there. Example story. Jane had a stroke that affected the left side of her parietal lobe. Afterward, she often couldn't feel her right hand, even if it was being held or pricked with a pin. Sometimes she felt a tingling sensation as if her hand were asleep, even though there was nothing wrong with her hand physically. 3. Brain damage and emotions, what we feel internally. The amygdala and limbic system handle emotions like fear, happiness, and sadness. Brain damage in these areas can lead to uncontrollable emotional outbursts, loss of empathy or inability to feel emotions deeply, increased anxiety or irrational fears. Example story. After suffering a head injury, Michael started having frequent mood swings. A small inconvenience could make him furious, and moments later, he burst into tears. His family learned this was due to damage in his limbic system, which was affecting how he processed emotions. 4. Brain damage and sound/processing, what we hear, what we watch or listen to. The temporal lobe processes auditory information and helps us make sense of language. Damage can result in difficulty understanding speech, hearing sounds but not recognizing them, auditory agnosia, misinterpreting what others say. Example story. Maria experienced a brain injury after a fall. She could hear people speaking, but the words sounded like a foreign language. Her brain couldn't connect the sounds to their meanings, which made communication frustrating for her. 5. Brain damage and perception of the world, watching and interpreting. The brain integrates information from all senses to help us understand our environment. Damage to the prefrontal cortex or parietal lobe can lead to difficulty interpreting scenes or actions, trouble watching fast-moving visuals, like sports or action movies, misjudging distances or spatial awareness. Example story. After a traumatic brain injury, John couldn't follow what was happening on TV. A simple movie scene with characters walking into a room confused him. He couldn't connect the sequence of actions. His brain injury made it hard for him to process what he watched. Understanding brain damage through what we see, feel, and watch. Brain damage is more than just a physical injury. It reshapes the way we experience the world. What we see, feel, and interpret becomes altered when the brain's delicate network is disrupted. By understanding these impacts, we can develop compassion for those facing these challenges and appreciate the remarkable complexity of the human brain.